tonight we're going to teach you how to throw the backhand. The backhand is the throw that we teach first for two reasons. Number one, it's the most familiar throw with everybody that plays Frisbee, and it's the throw that everybody throws incorrectly. So with that being said, you've got it in your non-throwing hand. I would like for you to take your throwing hand and extend it out in front like you're going to shake hands with me, okay? And we're going to say hello to Mr. Frisbee for the very first time. So you're going to take the disc, hold it horizontal to the floor. I want you to put it into the palm of your throwing hand. You're going to take your thumb and lie it on the Hedrick lines. Those are those little lines right there. They're called Hedrick lines after a gentleman by the name of Ed Hedrick. You're then going to take your fingers, including your index finger, which is going to pinch the thumb from the underside. You should be able to take the disc and move it back and forth between your thumb and your index finger, okay? Then you're going to wrap your other three fingers underneath the cheek of the disc. So your index finger goes over the edge, the other fingers wrap under. I don't care how you put those fingers under there. They can all be tight against the rim. You can have one out like I do. I've just got longer fingers. But no matter what, thumbs on the top, you pinch your index finger, and then you wrap the other fingers in. The last thing you're going to do is take your non-throwing hand, and you're going to pull the disc back against your forearm, not under and not over, but right against the forearm. Some people try to throw a Frisbee by placing their index finger on the edge of the disc. Technically, that is a correct backhand grip, but because it limits how far you can throw the disc, I have a tendency to teach all my students to hold the disc in what is called a Berkley power grip, which is what I just showed you how to hold. The reason of that is, yes, you'll be much more accurate by putting your finger out there in the beginning, but you'll not be able to develop the throwing distance that you need to compete even at the novice level. So to start out from the beginning, you wrap your finger underneath of it and you hold it like that, so that as you progress with your accuracy, you're also going to progress with your distance. Okay, so that's the grip. The next thing is the stance. A lot of people stand facing and trying to throw a Frisbee. I've just seen so many different bizarre stances in my life. The correct stance is you always take your hip and you aim it toward the direction, the person, the target, whatever you're going to throw towards. If you notice, my feet are approximately shoulders width apart. This is your lead foot. This is your trailing foot. Okay, it's the leg furthest away from your hip. So your trailing foot is a half a distance behind your front foot. You notice I'm at a 90-degree angle with my feet. And Janet, you're going to back your right foot up. Your left foot. Back your left foot up a little more, little more, little more, little more. Okay, right there. You're about half the length of your foot with your left foot back. Everybody's got it? So here's what we got. My hips are pointed at the trailer. I'm at a 90-degree angle. My left foot, my trailing foot rather, is half the distance behind it. I want you to bend your knees. Do not, from this point on, ever throw a Frisbee standing straight up. And here's why. Your knees and your hips are what create the impetus for the snap and the release of the Frisbee. And if you think about this, and we've all done it, when you snap somebody with a towel, you snap that towel out there, you don't stand there with your legs straight and snap it, okay? You bend your knees and you get your hips and you go pop. You notice you pop into it, right? If your legs are straight, your back's going to be straight, and you're only going to be able to use your wrist to throw a Frisbee. A Frisbee is not thrown with your back or with your shoulder. It's thrown, or with your arm. It's thrown with your wrist, your knees, and your hips. So it's pop. You're popping it out there, and you get a rhythm. Okay, so your knees have to be bent, and it also affords you the ability to transfer weight from your front to your back, because you're actually going to be transferring weight when you get that rhythm. Okay, you see it? Bang. All right. Your back is at a slight incline. If you stand straight up, you take your knees and your hips out of the equation. So you bend over just a little bit. It's kind of like being an umpire behind the catcher. You see how they stand there like this, okay? The next thing is, remember we taught you the grip. It was like this, right? So you take your left hand and you place it on the back side of the disc, and your thumbs should be about 1 inch apart. 1 inch apart. The actual stance looks like this. The last thing is the disc is pointed down at a 45-degree angle. And here's why. Everybody relax, take the disc, shake it out. Here's why. When a Frisbee flies, it flies in a gyroscopic environment. Unlike a ball, when you throw a ball, it's actually hurtling through the air. And when it goes up, it goes down in the straight path that you released it, unless you throw a good curveball. But with a Frisbee, how many of you that are right-handed, when you throw a Frisbee out, it always curves off to the right? You know, you throw it and it goes off that way. Okay? Right. And here's why. Because when you throw it, you're throwing the Frisbee flat out of your hand, right? Everybody throws it flat out of their hand. Well, think about this. It's actually flying against the Earth's rotating axis. So if you throw it flat and it's spinning in a clock direction, it's going to turn over. That's just a natural tendency. That's the way it flies. So when you release it, you always put an angle on it. So when you come out and you snap it, it's going to come out of your hand and flatten out and fly straight. The angle that you put that disc on, if it's less than a horizontal environment, meaning you're going to dip that edge down, that's called hyzer. H-Y-Z-E-R. Hyzer is the angle that you put on the disc when you release it out of your hand. The more wind or the further the distance you're going to throw it, the more hyzer you put on the disc. Now, there are instances where you do want the disc to turn over. Anything above horizontal, meaning you throw it out of your hand like that, is called anhyzer. So if I tell you to put more hyzer on the disc, that means you need to drop it down more. If I say put less hyzer, you bring it back up. Okay? Hyzer is down like that. So when you release this, you're actually going to have it at a 45-degree angle directly away from your nose. So if I have the stance, you notice the distance furthest from my nose is at a 45-degree angle. We use 45 as a medium because that's about the average that you want to put on it if there's any wind at all. In here tonight for throwing practices, you're probably going to put about 5 or 10 degrees on it because there's no wind in here. Okay? So you've got the grip. It's right there. We said hello to Mr. Frisbee. We pulled it back. We have our stance. Our feet are shoulder width apart. And you're going to balance your weight on your toes, on the balls of your feet. You do not want to sit back on your heels because when you sit back on your heels, you're going to have a tendency to straighten your legs out. And it also doesn't afford you to be able to transfer weight. So weights on the balls of your feet, knees are slightly bent, your back is bent. You've got the Frisbee pulled back against your forearm. There are two things that make a Frisbee go far. One is your arm speed. If you take a Frisbee and you put it in your arm and you just go like this, it's not going anywhere. And think about this. You guys, especially those of you that are my age, younger people might not get this, but you know, you got a pull start lawnmower, okay? And you reach down, you grab the cord on the pull start lawnmower, and you just do this. What happens? Nothing. That's right. It's not going to start. Trust me. I don't care if it's a Honda or not. It's not starting. But if you reach down, you grab that cord and pull it, what happens? It starts. Okay? So arm speed is important. And you'll develop arm speed once you get comfortable with the mechanics. So instead of doing that, you're going to do that. Okay? Arm speed's number one. The second and the most important thing about throwing a Frisbee is the snap that your wrist puts on the disc. Now, if you remember earlier when I told you about the grip, I said to pull it back against your forearm. And here's why. If you don't pull it back against your forearm, if you just stand there with the Frisbee out like this, That's all the snap you can get on it. It's not going anywhere. But if you pull it back against your forearm, now look at the snap. See that range you have on it? Now you can pop, pop, pop. Okay? So snap and arm speed are the two things that will determine how far and how accurate your Frisbee flies. The other thing that I'm going to tell you, and this is the most important part about releasing a disc, is you have to aim. And here's why. Because, and let's just take, for instance, I'm going to use that O right up there, the red O, Alpo, the O on the right-hand side. And let's say that I've got a handgun in my hand, and I want to shoot into the center of that O in the white spot. Now, if I take the handgun and I just point it and pull the trigger, chances of me hitting that O are probably going to be pretty slim, correct? Okay. But if I take that handgun and I level it and I aim down the sights on that gun and I squeeze the trigger ever so slightly, what are the chances of me hitting the center of that O? No, they're not very good because you've never seen me shoot before. They're better. That's it. They are better. And that's my point. If you don't aim on every single throw and every time you release the disc out of your hand, you have no idea where the disc is going to go. So what I like to tell everybody is that every single time you throw the Frisbee, you aim for the other person's belly button. And the reason is, it's the center of their body. And if you're aiming for that belly button and you're just a little off to the right or a little off to the left or high or low, guess what? They're still going to be able to catch it. So if I throw this to Scott, will you drop it? If I throw this to Scott, I'm going to aim for his belly button. Now, I had the right-left angle, but I was a little high. So this time, I lower it down, okay? So if I aim for his belly button every single time that I throw it, the chances of him having to be able to catch that without moving are much better, okay? And bless me, by the last week, you'll be able to do that exact same thing, all right? You have to aim every single time you throw the disc. So the release, if you've done your grip correctly and you've done your stance correctly, the release is easy. So in your mind, every single time you throw from this point on, I want you to say, snap, 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 snap. Because we have to educate the muscles in our wrists and in our forearms to be able to snap faster. We can't expect our muscles to react quicker if we don't tell them to. It's very simple. It's basic physics, okay? Snap. So I'm going to put my stance, my grip, my stance, I'm going to aim, and I'm going to snap. All right? That's the process. That's the release. Now, if you noticed, when I threw it, I didn't turn my body. I'm not doing this. If I do that, I can't keep my eyes on his belly button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the disc directly across my chest, just like this. Bang. Okay? You don't drop it down here. You don't lift it up. You keep it at the angle. You pull it back, and you snap for the belly button. Okay? Any questions? All right, the last thing I'm going to tell you is about the wind. What happens if you throw a Frisbee into the wind? What's it going to do? It's going to go up. Again, laws of physics, okay? You go into the wind just like an airplane. When it takes off, it's going to rise. So anytime you throw the disc into the wind, it's going to go up. Now, there's two ways to offset that disc rising and make it a minimal rise. The first is you can get lower and throw it, or you can put more hyzer on the disc. So when you bring that disc across, you've got it almost straight up and down as opposed to flat. Because what will happen is with that headwind, the disc is going to come out, it's going to be spinning really fast, and then it's going to straighten out. The only other thing that you need to do is to understand how much snap to put on it. And in that instance, you're going to snap it very hard. So if the disc rises going into the wind, what's it going to do going downwind? Correct. It's going to drop. So in order to offset that, you go the opposite direction. You lift the disc up instead of throwing it lower. You put no hyzer on it, and you actually lift the nose up. This is the nose of the Frisbee. Those are the shoulders, that's the tail, and that's the nose. The nose is always the point of the disc facing the person that you're throwing it to. So what you do is you lift it up, you get the nose up, and you use more arm and let it ride the wind downwind. If you throw that naturally, like you do into the wind, here's what's going to happen. Oh, sorry. I had to have a bad throw once, right? Here's what's going to happen. It's going to go down and drop on you before it gets to the position for your dog to catch it. Nice throw. So, into the wind, disc is going up. Downwind, the disc is going to drop. So, anything that you do to a Frisbee in order to make it fly correctly has got to be done before you release it. How many of you have said, oh, I'm sorry, the wind took it? The wind didn't take it. You gave it to it, okay? You know where the wind's coming from. You know how fast it is. Think about how much hyzer you have to put on it and how much snap you need to apply on it. If you want the disc to fly correctly in the wind, make the adjustments before you snap it out of your hand. So we have the grip, the stance. Remember, knees are bent, your shoulders are leaning forward, inclining your back. You're transferring the weight on the balls of your feet. You've got the disc in both hands, and you've got about 1 inch between your thumbs. Now, as you start to pull this back to make the release, let go with your left hand. And here's why we do this, okay? Think about this. Most of you will throw a Frisbee and watch. This is what you do. Where was my left arm? Okay? When you dance with somebody, what do you do with your left arm? Do you leave it just hang there? If you dance like I do, you do, okay? But when you drive a car, do you just let your left arm hang there? When you box, when you do anything, your left hand complements your right. It keeps a balance for you. When you ride a bicycle, anything at all, your left hand always balances the right. So from this point on, every throw you learn, your left hand has a job and a purpose, okay? It's kind of like doing windmills in gym class. You didn't stand there and go like this, okay? You went like this, all right? You have a balance. It's a yin-yang. It's the opposite of your right side to help keep the balance. So your left hand is on the disc until you get ready to release it, and then you let go. This arm's out. Where's your left hand? It's balancing you, so you're not going forward. And do me a favor. All your 60% of your weight is going to be on your back leg. Do not release this Frisbee by transferring your weight to your front and lifting your back foot. 60% is back here. So remember, guess what you're doing? You're snapping that towel. It allows you to use your hips and your knees.